Today's story takes us to Robinson, Texas, on the morning of the 9th of November 2005. It began with a frantic 911 call from a woman who claimed that something terrible had happened inside her home. What followed would leave a quiet community in shock and raise far more questions than answers. Let us delve into the story of the Gentry marriage. Darlene Gentry was one of three daughters, born into a loving family on the 2nd of November, 1974. Her relatives recalled her as a good, well-behaved child, bright, beautiful, and driven. During her teenage years in Central Texas, Darlene was described by several sources as a homecoming queen. With her blonde hair, blue eyes, and outgoing nature, she became known in the media as a Texas beauty queen. Though there's no evidence of her winning official pageant titles, her popularity at school and striking looks contributed to the label. Even from a young age, Darlene stood out in a crowd. She had an effortless way of getting along with people and left a strong impression on those she met. Friendly, sociable, and always smiling, she naturally attracted attention. She simply had a spark, something that drew others to her, and she often found herself at the center of social circles. At school, she performed well. Ambitious and disciplined, she earned praise from her teachers, and her parents were deeply proud of her. She was crowned prom queen and took part in the flag corps, earning admiration for her confidence and warmth. After completing her studies at Yo High School in Cameron, Texas, in 1993, Darlene enrolled at Texas State Technical College in Waco. She initially trained as a dental assistant before deciding to pursue a nursing degree. It was during her college years that she met the love of her life, Keith Gentry. She fell head over heels for him, and fortunately for her, the feeling was mutual. Wayman Keith Gentry was born on the 2nd of September 1974 in Waco, Texas, to Wayman and Glenda Gentry. He grew up in nearby Robinson, a quiet, tight-knit town where family ties were strong. Keith had two sisters, and his entire family adored him. He attended Robinson High School, where he was known for his easygoing nature and strong work ethic. Keith wasn't one to seek the spotlight, but those who knew him spoke of his reliability, loyalty, and subtle sense of humor. After leaving school, Keith also enrolled at Texas State Technical College in Waco, where he studied drafting and welding, skills that led to a secure role as an engineering assistant at a local utility company. Even in his early 20s, Keith had a mature outlook. He wasn't into partying and preferred to focus on work and building a future. His friends often referred to him as a family man in the making, long before he ever settled down. Keith's family took to Darlene immediately, and the feeling was mutual. Her loved ones approved of Keith too, and it seemed obvious to everyone around them that the pair would one day marry. Darlene was certain she had found the one, often telling friends and family just that. In 1997, after finishing college, both began looking for work. Darlene, by that point, was quietly hoping for a proposal, but Keith wasn't entirely ready. For him, moving in together, or getting engaged, felt like too big a step at the time. After some heartfelt discussions about their future, the couple made the difficult decision to go their separate ways. Their families were caught off guard by the breakup. Reportedly, both Darlene and Keith were heartbroken. Darlene decided to start fresh elsewhere, hoping that a change of scenery would help her forget about Keith. She moved to Dallas and found work as a dental assistant. About a year later, however, after her car was stolen and the big city lifestyle lost its charm, Darlene returned home. It wasn't long before the two reconnected, and their relationship was rekindled. This time, things moved quickly. Keith proposed in 1999, and the pair soon married. Shortly after the wedding, Darlene decided to pursue a new path. No longer content working as a dental assistant, she returned to school to train as a nurse. The couple bought their first home together and began settling into married life. Keith and Darlene built a comfortable life in Robinson. Their home was just down the road from Waco, in a quiet neighborhood where Keith's parents lived next door. Keith worked steadily as an engineering assistant at the local electric utility, while Darlene found stable employment as a registered nurse. With their combined incomes, the couple were able to afford a comfortable lifestyle. It wasn't lavish, but they managed to pay their bills, raise their family, and treat themselves now and then. The Gentrys dreamed of having a large family, and in 2001 they welcomed their first son, Chase. 3 years later came Cody, and in 2005 their third son, Cade, was born. Parenthood came naturally to them, and they had strong support from both sets of grandparents. From the outside, they seemed like the perfect family. Both parents were attractive, they had 3 beautiful boys, and they lived in a spacious home. But as is often the case, appearances can be deceiving. Because of his job, Keith spent several days a week travelling, leaving Darlene to manage the household and her own job. Unfortunately, even when he was home, not much changed. Keith needed to unwind from the stress of work and didn't fully appreciate the pressures Darlene faced. Eventually, he left his higher-paying, travel-intensive role for a lower-paid desk job in order to be closer to his family. His intentions were good, but the reduction in income added strain to their finances. Keith became frustrated. He found the new job dull and demoralizing, and the drop in earnings only made things worse. At the same time, Darlene was reportedly spending money beyond their means. She maintained an immaculate home and continued shopping for luxuries they could no longer afford. This became a frequent source of conflict. She often went out with friends, leaving much of the childcare to Keith's parents. Keith felt she was neglecting her responsibilities as a mother, and his frustration grew as he found himself increasingly left to handle the children alone. Despite his efforts to stabilize their finances, Darlene continued to overspend, accumulating debts that fueled ongoing arguments. Those close to the couple noticed growing tension, but by all accounts, neither of them was considering divorce. Keith, according to friends and family, still wanted to make things work. Darlene, on the other hand, was reportedly unhappy, frustrated by their finances and increasingly distant from her husband. But on the morning of the 9th of November 2005, something happened that would change their lives forever. At precisely 6:11 a.m., Darlene Gentry made a frantic call to emergency services. She claimed to have woken to find the back door of their home wide open, and her husband, Keith, lying in bed covered in blood. Her voice trembled as she described the scene to the dispatcher, stating that several of Keith's guns were missing and that he was gurgling and had pink foam coming out of his mouth. According to Darlene, she hadn't slept in the same bed as Keith the night before. Their youngest son, then around 18 months old, had woken during the night and wouldn't settle. She said she had taken the child to another bedroom, where their 2 other sons were sleeping, and stayed there. To help the boys fall back asleep, she claimed to have put on a film and remained in the room until around 6 a.m. When she got up, noticed the back door was ajar, and found Keith unresponsive in their bed. When paramedics arrived at the Gentry home shortly after 6 a.m., Keith was still alive, but only just. He had suffered a gunshot wound to the head and was unconscious, with pink foam coming from his mouth, a sign of severe internal trauma. He showed no signs of awareness. Emergency crews rushed him to Hillcrest Baptist Medical Center in Waco, where he was placed on life support. Despite the efforts of medical staff, Keith Gentry never regained consciousness. 2 days later, on the 11th of November 2005, he was pronounced dead. Detectives now had to determine who had shot Keith and what had truly happened in the Gentry household that night. As Darlene was home at the time, her testimony was potentially crucial, and she was taken in for immediate questioning. Darlene told investigators that on the evening of the 8th of November, she had gone out for dinner and drinks with a few girlfriends. She described the night as a quiet social outing and said she had returned home around 8:30 p.m., where Keith was waiting for her. He was visibly upset, having discovered a restaurant bill Darlene had paid, an expense he viewed as reckless given their strained finances. An argument followed, after which Darlene said she left the house to calm down. She got into her car and drove around for a while before returning home to apologize. By then, Keith had also cooled off, and the pair reconciled. He went to bed in the master bedroom, while Darlene, as previously stated, stayed with their children. She claimed she woke briefly around 5:15 a.m. after hearing the dog bark, but, as this had happened before, she went back to sleep. Around 6 a.m., she said, she got up again and began walking through the house, intending to wake Keith for work. When he didn't respond to her calling, she went into the bedroom and found him shot. She also noticed that the back doors were wide open and the gun cabinet, normally locked, had been opened. The weapons were gone. From her statement, it appeared that someone had broken into the house during the night, shot Keith, taken the guns, and left unnoticed. But investigators quickly noticed inconsistencies. Darlene said she didn't check on Keith until 6 a.m., but forensic evidence suggested the shooting had likely occurred much earlier. Her account of her movements didn't fully align with the scene. She had claimed that Keith's guns had been stolen, but officers found several of them neatly stacked just outside the house, not missing. This strongly suggested that the burglary had been staged. In addition, only Darlene and Keith had access to the gun cabinet. Whoever took the firearm must have known where the cabinet was and where the key was kept. It seemed an unlikely level of knowledge for a random intruder. Then there was Darlene's reaction. Despite being a trained nurse, she hadn't attempted to administer CPR or offer any medical aid to her husband. When emergency services arrived, she made no effort to check his condition. For someone with her medical background, and as his wife, her lack of action seemed unnatural. Darlene later explained that she was terrified for her own life and for the safety of her children, and that's why she didn't try to help Keith. Instead, she had locked herself in a room with the boys. During the 911 call, Darlene immediately launched into a highly detailed account of where she had slept and how she had found her husband. Detectives noted that her tone seemed oddly composed, too measured, too specific. It sounded more like an alibi than a distressed reaction to discovering a loved one bleeding to death. Later that same morning, during an official police interview, Darlene invoked her Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, stating, "I think I need an attorney." The questioning was immediately brought to an end.
Girlfriends, I've had no boyfriends. I mean, we were fine on that. We were just trying to figure out how to manage things with this third child. Just because it had put a strain on us with daycare and diapers and everything else. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Can we get you something? I'm going to change tapes. I'm going to go get those statements that you filled out earlier because I still need you to sign those.
I mean, are we looking to the point that I'm going to have to get an attorney or something? I mean, this is, I haven't done anything. I loved my husband, and I would have never done anything to take him away from his boys, ever.
No, and he loved his boys.
No. I mean, they were his world. I mean, I know he loved me. I know that doesn't sound, and I loved him, but our kids were our life. And they still are. I mean, it's...
Take a moment. Let me change tapes. Can I get you anything, Darlene?
Okay.
Investigators did not believe Darlene's account, and after she invoked her Fifth Amendment right, their suspicions only deepened. What struck them most was her lack of emotion. She hadn't asked even once about Keith's condition, nor did she seem particularly distressed that her husband was fighting for his life. Still, the authorities needed evidence. They asked for permission to search the Gentry home. While there were no signs of forced entry, just as they had suspected, they discovered something far more significant. One of the most damning pieces of evidence came from the kitchen bin. Hidden at the bottom, investigators found a pair of latex gloves. Inside the gloves was a .22 caliber shell casing, traces of gunshot residue, and DNA from only two individuals, Keith and Darlene. A possible motive also emerged: Keith's life insurance policy, valued between $500,000 and $750,000. 19 days after the shooting, Darlene Gentry was arrested. But on the very same day, 28th November 2005, she was released on bail after her in-laws posted $50,000 to secure her freedom. The Gentry family stood firmly by her side. Keith's parents did not believe for a moment that their daughter-in-law could be responsible for his death. In fact, the entire family rallied around her, refusing to entertain the idea that she might be the perpetrator. Darlene returned home, but in the days that followed, new information began to surface. Shortly after her release, Darlene contacted Robert Pavelka, a landowner and acquaintance, expressing interest in purchasing a piece of property near Axtell, Texas. She told him she was looking to move and start fresh after the tragedy. The land had a pond, which she said reminded her of Keith's dream of taking their boys fishing. But only a few weeks later, Darlene made an unusual request. She asked Pavelka if he could fill in the pond. This was a sudden and unexpected change, given how enthusiastic she had been about the water feature. Pavelka found it suspicious, and promptly contacted the authorities. Detectives were instantly intrigued. The pond now seemed like a place that might be hiding something. They decided to search it. Their instincts were right. Inside the pond, investigators discovered the murder weapon. Still, suspicion and circumstantial evidence weren't enough. Investigators needed something more, something that would prove Darlene's involvement beyond doubt. So they devised a plan. Robert Pavelka was asked to cooperate with police. He phoned Darlene, agreeing to go ahead and fill in the pond, but told her that before doing so, he would first have to drain it. Detectives were hoping this would provoke a reaction. Perhaps, they thought, if Darlene feared that the murder weapon might be discovered during the draining process, she might try to retrieve it herself. Over the phone, Darlene sounded calm and unbothered. She agreed to the plan without hesitation, but now investigators were watching closely, waiting to see what she would do next. Unbeknownst to her, police set up surveillance by the pond. When she arrived the next day wearing wading boots and began probing the pond bed at the exact spot where investigators later retrieved the missing .22 revolver, the scene was captured on video and became pivotal evidence at trial. The trial took place in McLennan County, Texas, lasting 5 days in February 2007. Darlene Gentry, then 32, faced charges of first-degree murder for killing her husband Keith while he slept in their Robinson home. Central to the prosecution's case was secretly recorded video footage showing Darlene returning to a pond near Axtell, Texas, wearing wading boots and probing the water with a rod. She retrieved the .22 caliber revolver she had previously concealed, 2 days after the weapon had been recovered by authorities. The defense team chose not to call any witnesses during the trial's guilt-innocence phase. Instead, they relied on cross-examinations and legal arguments to defend their client. Despite these efforts, on February 8, 2007, Darlene Gentry was convicted of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to 60 years in prison. Prosecutors argued that Darlene had a clear motive. She wanted to be free of her marriage and benefit financially from her husband's $500,000 life insurance policy. In their closing remarks, the prosecution warned jurors not to be fooled by appearances, saying, "Looks can be deceiving. Nobody thought a cute little blonde mommy would do what she did." Darlene Gentry is currently serving a 60-year prison sentence at the Dr. Lane Murray Unit in Gatesville, Texas. In November 2017, her appeal for a new trial was denied by the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, leaving her conviction intact. According to official records, she will be eligible for parole in February 2037, with her full sentence scheduled to conclude in February 2067. Darlene has consistently maintained her innocence throughout the legal proceedings. In 2010, a court order granted permanent custody of her 3 sons, Chase, Cody and Cade to Keith's parents and barred Darlene from having any contact with them. She has reportedly had no communication with the children since that time. Keith Gentry was a devoted husband, a loving father of 3, and a man known for his quiet strength and unwavering loyalty. He worked hard to provide for his family and chose stability over ambition so he could be present in his sons' lives. To those who knew him, Keith was dependable, kind, and deeply rooted in his values. His life was cut tragically short, but his memory lives on in the hearts of those who loved him. Thank you for listening to this story. Until next time.